Hello, I am Zinfogel. Alright, by the time this video goes up, there should be a new egg event comprised of rock, fire and bug Eggmons, all of which are reruns. If you're familiar with previous egg batches, then there is nothing new to see here, and this is probably a hard skip, but I am questioning whether this video is necessary to make for that reason. However, I haven't covered these Eggmons in the past, and any effort you spend on things you like doing is not wasted, so there might be something new you can learn here. In case you are new to these Eggmon videos, I have a baseline for all my comparisons. I like going for 4-star potential and 3 out of 3 affinity, because on every egg event we get at least one collection of resources to raise an Eggmon to 3-star potential as a minimum, and we also get a whole batch of bronze and silver cakes, and if you have any spare bronze tickets and can afford to raise an Eggmon to 4-star potential, then at this stage you get a decent unit that will yield great results in battle. Okay, let's start this with the fan favorite. Here we have a Striker Arcanine, who happens to be the shiny of the Arcanine batch, and this guy's gimmick is using Flare Blitz, which is a strong fire type attack, but it unfortunately has a recoil tag. That means that any damage you deal to the enemy, you will receive a portion of that damage in return, and that is really bad in Pokémon Masters. It's atrocious, because unlike the main series games, where recoil damage is passable, in Pokémon Masters the HP pools are a lot more demanding. We're talking about a casual 10,000 HP on a Centermon on a regular encounter, and that is much more than your available HP pool. Arcanine cannot survive a prolonged encounter with its main damaging move because it will just destroy itself in the process, and if you don't have a striker who can sustain itself in some fashion, then it's just not functional, unfortunately. Although it does have a standfast tree, this removes 30% of your recoil tag. So for Flare Blitz, which has a 25% recoil tag, that means that it becomes a 17.5% recoil tag, which is still a lot. Like, let's put Sawyer's Beware as an example. That guy has 24,000 HP, so that's 4,200 damage that you will receive on per recoil, just trying to get rid of that entire health bar. So even if Skyla is on full potion overdrive, she just cannot keep up with that type of recoil. And unfortunately, there is another gacha who has Flare Blitz and much more sustainability, and that is Hilda. Hilda at 1.5 has a standfast 5, so she already takes less recoil. She has a lot more HP, so she can sustain recoil damage a lot better than what Arcanine can. And just to be fair, let's compare it with 5 stars, because Hilda is a 5-star. Hilda still has 300 more HP. She also has Fear State 4 to mitigate the recoil, and the more you raise her sync level, she also gets more standfast tiles to sustain damage on the long term, and she also has potions, so Hilda by herself can sustain Flare Blitz, which is something Arcanine will never have. So just because of Hilda's existence, I don't see any perks that are salvageable for Arcanine, unfortunately. I mean, you do have critical hit rate, you can have some regeneration, but it's still not enough to mitigate the recoil. It's just too much for poor Arcanine, I'm afraid. For support Arcanine over here, the good boy, his gimmick is raising attack. It has Strike Together, raises attack and speed for the entire party by 1 stage, and X attack, so it's a little selfish. It can only maximize attack for itself, and its main attacking move is Flame Charge, which also raises its speed, which is deceptively useful, because when you raise your speed, it means that you are sustaining engage by yourself, and actually, that's not going to work with this speed stat, never mind. I was trying to make a case for this, but this is just a straight up outclass by Torchic. Torchic can raise critical hit rate, special attack, it can raise attack to 4 stages for the entire party. It also has Flame Charge, much better stats in comparison to a 4-star support Eggmon. Nothing to say here, I am sorry. Not even for tanking. All support Eggmons are awful at tanking, so don't even think about that. And for the last good doggo, we have a Tech Arcanine, and its tech gimmick is burning things. I glossed over this, but all the other Arcanine also have Ember, which is a spammy 1-bar move with a 10% chance of burning, which is nice to have, and it's spammy, but it is impertinent for the other kids. But for this guy, it does matter because his whole gimmick is burning things because he has Hostile Environment 1, so he has an additional reroll for burning, and he also gets Fire Fang, which has a 10% chance of burning and flinching, although the flinching chance is not enhanced, but both of them can happen at once. It has accuracy issues, but it is available. The problem here, though, is that we have a much more reliable burn applicator, a free-to-play burner called Flannery and Torkoal, who have Will-O-Wisp, and if your whole purpose in life is burning, then you are outclassed by Flannery, unfortunately. And if it had a chance of enhancing the flinch chance of Fire Fang, I could make a case for this thing, but unfortunately, the gimmick is not strong enough compared to all the other tools that Flannery brings to the table, who has much more self-sufficient offensive buffs. Flannery can do much more than burning, that's what I'm trying to get at here, while Arcanine struggles to burn, because its chances of proccing it are not even great, so... Oi, this is not looking good for these boys. And for our next victims, we have the Onix. Here we have Striker Onix, who happens to be the shiny of the Onix batch, and unfortunately for this guy, it is a Striker Eggmon whose main attacking move has a recall tag, so deja vu much. This has the exact same issues that we talked about on Striker Arcanine, so the HP pools on enemies just will not allow this guy to sustain damage on the long term, and very unfortunately for Striker Onix, there is another gacha unit who also happens to have Head Smash, so the investment is not even required if you want to explode yourself with damage, and that unit is Rogue. Rogue has Head Smash, X attack as well. Its trainer move doesn't have a regeneration unlike Striker Onix, but it has accuracy, sure hit to land the Head Smash and make sure that Rampardos destroys itself. It also has a Smackdown, and unlike Rock Throw, Smackdown cannot miss, and Rogue just has a much chunkier HP stat to attempt to survive a couple uses of Head Smash, so... Although it does have decent passives, Standfast 3, Rourke will kill for this, and Vigilance prevents critical hits from happening in case you receive some AoE damage, but I don't think you should be investing on this, especially when Rourke exists. And here we have a support Onix who suffers from tanking Eggmon syndrome. And that is a term I coined because this is just an occurrence that happens fairly often in support Eggmons who have a tanking kit, but unfortunately the stats are just not there to back it up. Because at the baseline I outlined, with these defenses you are going to get exploded by any remotely powerful attack, especially when you don't have any meaningful recovery on your kit, and when you try to attempt to tank and you don't have the stats, it's just not going to happen. You are better off using a proper tank, like, I don't know, Dawn or Skyla or whomever. Use some other support who has better perks than what the Eggmon provides, because the kit itself is just selfish. Like, you can raise defense and speed for the entire party by 1 stage per use, X defense to raise your defense, and you have Vigilance, which are nice passives. Like, these are excellent passives, but stats are just not there. So far in this analysis, there has been a trending topic in that I have very pessimistic assessments regarding all these segments, but that finally changes with the Tech Onix because it has a very strong utility move in Screech, one of my favorites in this game. There are other units who have Screech, specifically Nanu, who is a free-to-play story unit, but Onix distinguishes itself from Nanu because it has a spammy 1-bar move with a better trainer move. This raises your defenses by 1 stage, and it also gives you regeneration, so Tech Onix has much more lasting potential than Nanu, and it's generally more effective if the whole purpose of the unit is screeching, although Nanu can flinch, but that's besides the point. Screech is very important because enemies in this game barely have any mitigation to defense drops. On Battle Villa, for example, all the side mons never have a train body, and all the center mons only have a train body 3. So Tech Onix can pierce right through their defenses, and every time you use a Screech, it's sort of like using X attack on your Striker again, because it just takes full advantage of the defense reduction. And I've used Tech Onix in the past in meme team compositions alongside Brock and Jasmine, used for the triple Onix Bros, which I enjoyed. But unfortunately for Tech Onix, there is another Eggmon we're going to discuss on this video, who is Tech Lickitung, who has an identical kit, but in my opinion a better main attacking move. So we'll discuss that more in depth. So because of Tech Lickitung's existence, I cannot recommend this anymore. So into the garbage bin it goes. Finally, a Striker Eggmon in this batch without suicidal tendencies. Here we have a Striker Golem who is also raising its arms in excitement. And this guy's main attacking move is Rock Slide, which is fine. My qualm with AoE attacking moves is that it's difficult to set up denials with them, but Rock Slide does have a perk in that it has a 30% chance of making the target flinch. However, it has accuracy issues, so you're not guaranteed to connect all your targets, and this is where I cannot recommend Golem in good conscience, because there are other units who do the whole Rock Sliding thing slightly better. Specifically, we have a Tyranitar on the main story who is a totally atrocious unit, and if that unit performs similarly to Golem, then you can sort of anticipate the results that you will get out of investing on a Striker Golem. And then there is also Grant, who has accuracy buffs, aggravation 1 with Rock Slide. So even though Grant doesn't have any offensive buffs and has a much less attack than either Tyranitar or Striker Golem, Aurorus is much more viable on the Rock Slide spam because it has much higher chances of flinching with it, and this also applies for Tech Aerodactyl, who also has Rock Slide with Aggravation 1, and I don't know, the fact that it can regenerate health is nice, but the multipliers are difficult to set up. You will not get a strong damage out of this, and if you want to spam Rock Slide, I think you're better off using Aurorus in that case. Alright, here we have a Support Golem, and will this guy rock our world? I'm afraid not. This guy suffers from tanking Eggmon syndrome. X defense will stand together, an identical kit to support Onix. It does have Unbending and Stalwart, which is really nice because it means that you cannot drop these things' defenses through any means, which is handy for Legendary Arena, but unfortunately, if you are crazy enough to tank with an Eggmon on Legendary Arena, I don't know what to tell you. This is just... No, don't even think about it. Although Support Golem does have one perk in Ancient Power, so it has a 10% chance of raising all of its stats, which will benefit Ancient Power itself, but if only it has slightly better defenses. Like if you slapped, I don't know, plus 40 defense on this, and then raise it to 5-star potential on 2020 anyway. Like if support items could have like 250 defenses, I could make a case for them, but this is just way too squishy to be functional, so nothing salvageable, I'm afraid. Lastly, we have a Tech Golem whose gimmick is speed drops, and very unfortunately for this guy, there happens to be a free-to-play story unit, one of the very first units you earn in this game, and that is Brock and Onix, who also happen to be experts at the single targeted speed drops. And for Onix and Brock, they have much better advantages than Tech Golem, because first off, they have benefits that derived from dropping speed. Specifically, they have Cakewalk integrated on their sync, so the more you drop speed, the stronger their sync. And they also have Haymaker, they have Potion, which pretty much makes up any advantage you would get from Golem is innate regeneration. And just far more utility, much better defensive stats. They can even restore status conditions, they can become clerics. They have MGRs, the advantages of having a grid. So you are purely looking to drop a speed, you should be using Clement anyway, but Onix does it better. Listen, I swear the next Eggmons are in complete garbage, like maybe we can do something here, I promise. So here we have a Striker Pinsir. The Striker is the shiny of the Pinsir batch, and I happen to have one raised to 4-star potential, merely for the fact that it is shiny, but that means I do have experience using a Striker Pinsir. And this guy is fine. It has an interesting perk in that it is a bug type Eggmon, but it has close combat as its main attacking move, so it's a fighting type in disguise. And because it has close combat, it puts it in direct competition with Corina, who is a relatively better striker for the most part. Better stats, better defenses, worse speed, but Corina can mitigate that through her training move, because Pinsir can only raise its attack defenses and give itself some regeneration, which is funny, because its better passive is Power Reserves too, to give itself a 20% multiplier, but that conflicts with regenerating health. So this is still difficult to set up. And I don't know. If you want to capitalize off of the fact that you are a bug type striker, you can use Excisor, but it's still a really weak 2-bar move. And there is Noland who does it better, who has a much chunkier attack stat at 4-star potential with its Mega Evolution. So I honestly cannot recommend this. Even after having used it, like, I can accomplish the same results just using Corina instead. And Super Duper Effective 1 is not enough to mitigate the fact that this is still an Eggmon who doesn't have a grid and needs potential to be functional. Next, we have Support Pinsir, who is one of the better support Eggmons on this batch, although that's not saying much, because it actually has proper buffing utility. So, because support Eggmons are so bad at tanking, I look at them more as tools to fill gaps in your team composition. And for support Pinsir, it can maximize attack. So, this pairs really well with other strikers who have issues with this. Primary examples of this are Corina, Wally, who kinda struggle to raise their own attack stat, and Pinsir can do that for them, so that is some nice utility that they can provide to an whole team structure. And outside of that, it doesn't do much. Brick Break is overglorified, like, it's not that useful of a move because it removes screens, but it is so rare when screens actually happen in regular encounters. And this also can remove critical shields, which would be amazing if they could, but Brick Break can only remove Reflect and Light screen at the moment. So there is only been one full force where there were critical shields alongside defensive shields, and that was Delicia Full Force. So that is pretty much the only place where I can think a Brick Break could be useful. But if you're bringing a unit purely for Brick Break, then I will be bringing Brawly instead, who also has potions, and that is arguably better utility. And just buffing attack is not enough, although attack buffers are scarce, so this may come in handy for Champion Stadium if you don't have Hilbert and you use the 1-star Pinsir just to buff your attack stat. That would be a fine idea. Like, it has utility, but it's limited utility. Last but not least, we have a Tech Pinsir, and the tech gimmick is Paralysis. We have a Body Slam, 30% chance of paralyzing the target with Hostile Environment 1, so that is a 51% chance of paralyzing with Body Slam, which are solid chances, but there are free-to-play story units who can guarantee the paralysis, specifically Erika. Erika has much better defensive utility than Pinsir, although Pinsir does provide some move gauge with its speed stat and X speed, but I think Erika just flat out outclasses it as a paralysis unit because first off, Erika has a stun spell with piercing gaze, so she cannot ever miss the proc with paralysis. And then there is also Golem, who is a much better gauge generator with Thunder Wave, which has a 90% chance of landing, but you can fix that through the Troublemaker 1 Lock skill, and both of them in conjunction just eliminate any utility that a Tech Pinsir can have. But he's a weird middle ground between them because it has some recovery and a decent chance of paralyzing while damaging the target, so I guess it counts as a bruiser. 20% multipliers. I don't know, I still wouldn't recommend this. Please, Venomoth, you have to rescue the viability of this batch. We are begging you. This is your opportunity. Alright, let's start this with Striker Venomoth. This guy is one of those strange Striker Eggmons where it has a specific typing, but its main attacking move is of a different type, which is conflicting for things like Champion Stadium, because you want to bring this for, say, Bruno to strike the Psychic type weakness, but you cannot use your Sync to do that, so it's conflicting. That's why I don't like this type of Eggmon too much, but it's a striker who has tech utility. It can inflict trap, it's guaranteed to land 100% accurate, can raise special attack, that is nice, and it also gives regeneration, so it has some sustain. But it does still want critical hit support, but as a straight Psychic Eggmon, I don't know if you want to use this. Although there aren't any great free-to-play Psychic type strikers, there is Meowstic and Golem, but Psybeam is relatively weaker compared to Psychic. There is Tate, he is a solid unit when set up right, but also needs as much help as Venomoth to get going, and for Tate you didn't have to do the Eggmon investments, and I just don't see anything salvageable on this kid, besides the fact that it is a striker for dual striker team compositions who can inflict trap, so this can be handy as a partner for Karem or Wallace to activate the stationary target or fall fighting, or even the newly announced Skyland Toekis, so oh no. Support Venomoth also unfortunately suffers from tanking Eggmon syndrome. This thing attempts to be a special defense tank, but the stats are just not there to make it happen. However, this is a tech unit in disguise, because we have Infestation and Psybeam, so you can still trap with this, and it has a 10% chance of confusing the target, so that is some okay utility, but as you will see with the next unit, with the next Venomoth, this is just not worth thinking about. Alright, I'm gonna be real with you. The only reason you should be hatching eggs on this batch is because of Tech Venomoth. Tech Venomoth is one of the stronger Eggmons available, and if you don't have one built, then you should strongly consider it, especially if you love using a 3-5 Karen as a striker, or the newly released Skyla. They benefit so much from Tech Venomoth's existence. And the reason is that this is one of the very rare techs who can apply a status and an interference, but Tech Venomoth does it with reliability. So you could consider Kalin for this role, but Psybeam is very low chances of proccing. Well, as you will see with the Tech Venomoth, it has Infestation, so a 100% chance of a landing trap, and Stun Spore, which can miss, but it gets Troublemaker 1 as a passive. So this increases the accuracy of status moves, and that means that you will always land the Stun Spore, so if you click Infestation, you land the trap. If you click a Stun Spore, you land the Paralysis. So if you main striker depends on either an interference or a status condition in order to deal damage, then Tech Venomoth can do that for you and do it reliably. Like, it also gets excess speed to maintain gauge and hang in there for some regeneration, so you don't have to babysit it as much in order to let it survive an encounter. So definitely you should consider going for a Tech Venomoth, especially because Troublemaker 1 is a second passive, so you hatch one of these with 2 passives and it's ready to go, so it's easily accessible and it's a great utility tool to have. Please get a Tech Venomoth, it is really good. I know this video is long enough as it is, but nothing like a little bonus, ain't it? So, here we have the Lickitung. The Lickitung batch was released prior to the Rock, Fire and Bug Egg event, but I never covered it, so this is my chance just to let you know. So for the Lickitung batch, we got the Striker Lickitung, and this thing is horribly outclassed by Striker Kangaskhan. Unfortunately, for any normal type of striker, they now have to compete with Striker Kangaskhan, who is an absolute monster with Mega Kick, with Piercing Gaze, and it also raises its own critical hit rate, and it's just generally very efficient as a striker. Like, it's really difficult to compete with Striker Kangaskhan, and for Lickitung, it's a suicidal Eggmon. It has Double Edge as its main attacking move with Stand Fast 3, although it has a Stomp, so it's at least salvageable as a striker because it can do some okay damage and also flinch, 0% chance of flinching, so that is okay. It can also restore some health with Fierce Sight too, but it's still not enough to sustain Double Edge. Is Recoil. It is a really strong attack, but if only it had more recovery than what it has on its base kit, so don't even consider this, go for Striker Kangaskhan. Now we have a support Lickitung, who is a support Eggmon that is also a tech in disguise, because you get some solid buffs. You can raise attack for entire party to +4 stages, raise defense and speed, so you get a mini Skyla buff, and it has Brappa to give you some trapping utility to activate fall fighting for other units, and you also get Mega Kick, so if you pair this on a triple support team composition and fix the accuracy somehow through Leaf, like you could activate type skills alongside Leaf for a massive 120 HP boost, boost. Leaf can fix Lickitung some accuracy, and then you can bring, I don't know, Sabrina or Phoebe to fix everybody some critical hit rate. And on that team archetype, you can actually deal some really decent damage because Mega Kick is an absurdly strong move, especially if you bother giving these things some egg candies. Like, you can raise this to 200 base power, not as strong as Tech Sinks without any boosts. So even with a relatively low attack style, Eggmon can still hit fairly hard. I have used support Charizard as a striker in the past, and with the correct moveset, it can deal good damage. And Lickitung has that at its disposal with Mega Kick. So it's not a sitting dog after spamming random Brapping around the field. But Brapping is more so a tool for other purposes. But Mega Kick does give this thing another legendary life. But it is weird because X attack may or may not work depending on the team structure. I don't know. Decent passives though. Endurance is really nice to have to shield this thing from any AoE crits, for example. But yeah, I like this. I unironically think this is good just because of Mega Kick. And Brap is an excellent tool to have. Lastly, we have Tech Lickitung, and if you've been watching this entire video, then kudos to you, but you might remember that I mentioned that Tech Onix is outclassed by another unit in this batch, and this unit. So, Tech Lickitung has an identical kit to Tech Onix. You get a Screech, which is an amazing utility move, hanging there to raise your defenses and give you regeneration, X speed, and Brap. So while Tech Onix has the spammy 1-bar move, so you can do something after spamming Screech, Tech Lickitung can inflict Trap, so it gives you more utility, which is not exactly handy right now because there aren't any fall fighting users who are physical strikers. At the moment, only Karen, Skyla, and Toekis and Wallace can benefit from trapping really well, also Viola, but they're all special strikers, so Screech and Brap don't mash together in the current meta, but if someday we get a unit who benefits from Trap and can also attack on the physical end, then Lickitung would be a perfect partner for it. And there is also Poké Trap, which would help you enhance the amount units receive from Trap Recoil, although it's negligible because units are not going to be attacking that often anyway to make that worthwhile. But case in point, it's a decent unit. I wouldn't call this a priority. Like, I would prioritize Tech Kangaskhan over this, but the day that we get that physical trapping unit, then that's when Lickitung will shine. We did it, guys! I am going to pat myself on the back because I am proud that took some effort. Either way, unfortunately, this whole batch can be summarized as disappointing. There isn't anything awful per se, because if you buff an Eggmon to its proper potential, then they will do their role fine. But the problem is that Eggmon resources are so limited that you have to be careful about nitpicking this. So I try to be realistic. Like, if there are Eggmons who have roles that are similar to gachas, who are easier to access, then you can afford to skip them. But either way, go for the Tech Venomoth. I highly recommend it. The Tech Lickitung and Support Lickitung could be really good when set up right, but they are still situational units, so oh well, that's what I got to say here. So thank you for watching, thank you for your support, and see you next time.